The story begins as we meet a boy named Haru who shut himself in after being bullied in high school. He stayed in his room for years, but one day he has suddenly reincarnated by a goddess. Haru realizes he must have died, and the goddess tells him he will be reincarnated into a new world filled with magic, and she will give him overpowered skills to help him in his new life. She tells him to enjoy his second chance at life, and Haru just wants to be able to live a quiet and easy life. The goddess reincarnates him, and he finds he has been reincarnated as a baby. He's the son of the king, and he's born with the royal insignia. The king is excited to see how strong he is, so he has his advisor perform a magical assessment. His crystal ball glows as it examines Haru's power. The king thinks he should be strong because his mother was the hero who defeated the demon king, but it turns out he is only level 2. And his advisor notes he also has no elements, so he can only use barrier magic. The king can't believe this, wondering how they could have such a useless son, and they think it would be a problem if other people found out, so they both come up with the idea to say he died during childbirth. Haru can't believe he is going to die after he was just reincarnated, and the king orders for him to be disposed of in a faraway forest. The goddess panics seeing this, and she realizes she messed up because she actually made Haru's power level 1002, but the measuring devices in that world don't go up that high, so they don't realize how strong he is. Haru finds himself abandoned in a forest, and he can't do anything since he is just a baby. He thinks about how they mentioned he can use barrier magic, so he decides to give it a go. He imagines it in his mind, and he manages to form a cube. He finds it easy to control, easily changing its size and its form. He tries using it on himself, and it allows him to float in the air, but at that moment a giant wolf suddenly appears. Haru starts freaking out, but he is protected by his barrier. He picks up a bunch of trees with his barriers, and he uses them to attack the wolf. The wolf is still able to get up, so he decides to go even bigger, picking up an enormous chunk of the ground, but the wolf cries out, and Haru realizes the wolf can talk. The wolf can't believe how strong he is, thinking he isn't normal. Haru struggles to talk, but he gets an idea and uses a barrier that turns his thoughts into sound. He manages to talk, and the wolf wants to know more about him. Haru introduces himself and says he was abandoned because his mana level was too low, but the wolf doesn't believe this because it can sense his overwhelming power and it thinks he is the reincarnation of the demon king. Haru decides to play along, and the wolf instantly believes him. It admits defeat and tells him to just finish her off, but Haru says it's not necessary as long as she doesn't attack him again. She can't believe he is so merciful, and she swears on her name as a flame Fenrir to keep this promise. Haru bids her farewell, calling her Flay, but the wolf sees this as being given a name, so she claims they have formed a pact, and she swears her loyalty to him. Haru explains he just shortened her name and wasn't trying to form any pact, but Flay doesn't listen to him. Haru suddenly becomes weak and he falls to the ground. Flay wonders what's wrong, and it turns out he requires sustenance. He says he needs milk, and Flay ends up transforming into a human form. Haru is embarrassed seeing her naked, so she puts on a suit, but Haru thinks it's just as bad. Flame prepares to give him her milk, but it turns out she doesn't have any. She suddenly hears someone approaching, wondering if she should take them out, but Haru says they should try talking to them first. A man approaches them, and Flay asks him why he is there. The man says he is there for Haru, but Flay refuses to hand him over. The man wonders about their relationship, and Flay tells him Haru is her master. The man claims to be Haru's relative and that he is there to save him. He reveals he even brought milk, and Haru tells Flay to accept it, but she doesn't listen to him. She wonders why he is coming back for something they threw away. The man claims his wife was once pregnant, but the child didn't make it, so he doesn't care that Haru was abandoned for being weak, and he thinks that every child should have the chance to have a life. Flay has moved. Hearing this, and the man finds it strange to see a demon crying. They come to the deal, and the man decides to take her in as well so she can stay by Haru's side. After 9 years, Haru has grown up living with his new family. He had originally hoped to leave after being weaned off milk, but they were so kind to him that he ended up staying. But his only problem is that his sister Charlotte doesn't get along with him. Flay serves as their maid, and Charlotte seems to like her, asking her to play. Flay says her job is to look after Haru, but Haru orders her to play, so they go outside and Charlotte chases after her. Haru watches them from inside, and his mother tells him not to let it get to him, saying Charlotte is just at the age where she doesn't know how to act around boys. Haru worries. The reason is because Charlotte can tell he is actually almost 30, so she can sense he is an old man. His mother thinks he should do something special to show how reliable he is, thinking she will change her mind, but Haru thinks he is no good in social situations. She says that as their heir he should get out more instead of always spending his time in his room. Haru heads back to his room and he thinks he should leave before his parents start demanding more from him. But he thinks Charlotte would hate him even more if he took Flay away, and he knows that Flay would never agree to stay behind. We see he has created a claw of himself using his barrier magic so he can one day replace himself, but he hasn't been able to make it move or talk. His father knocks on his door and they go out to the yard where his father wants to start teaching him how to use the sword. He isn't interested in learning, but his father tells him that since he has such low levels of mana he should develop his other skills. Haru wants to just relax, but his father insists he gives it a go. Haru knows his father is an experienced warrior, so he thinks he doesn't stand a chance. He casts his barrier to protect himself, and he charges at his father, even breaking his sword. His father is shocked seeing the damage he caused, and he tells Haru to try and avoid his attack. He swings at him, but Haru manages to dodge it. His father can't believe this, and he says it should have been impossible for anyone under level 30 to dodge, and Haru also finds this strange. We learn that he tried checking his power with an even stronger crystal ball, thinking he could have a level in the hundreds, but it still ended up only showing 2, and he thinks it would be impossible to have a level in the 4 digits. Because the highest level in all of humanity was only level 77, so he wonders what powers he was given by the goddess. Later that night Haru's father tells his wife about the sword training session, but he is concerned that Haru could be a demon. His wife is shocked hearing this, and he mentions that there are secret records with a royal family bred with demons, and there were some who were born with demonic traits. His wife thinks Haru looks just like a normal boy, but they consider why a demon such as Flay is so obedient to him. However, he assures his wife that Haru is still their son and that he will have a happy life, but Charlotte is shocked hearing her brother could be a demon. We see Haru relaxing in his room when there is suddenly a commotion outside. He uses his barriers to see what's going on, and we see a bunch of injured soldiers. Haru asks his father about what happened, and his father mentions their lands have been getting attacked by thieves. They found the base of the thieves, but they ended up getting ambushed. His father thinks it's a harsh sight for him to witness, so he tells Haru to go back inside. Flight calls them useless for getting beaten by some thieves, but Haru gets pissed off, telling her to shut her mouth. As Haru walks past, he uses his barriers on the wounded, and he is able to instantly heal them all. The men can't believe it, and Haru's father wonders what's going on. At night Haru wakes up and he sees Flay has been waiting for him. She doesn't dare to talk, and Haru realizes she is still following his previous order. He apologizes for losing his temper and he allows her to speak again. They head outside and Haru uses his barriers to look for the thieves that attacked his father. He is quickly able to find them and plans to wipe them out as he uses his barrier to fly to their location, but at that moment we see Charlotte watching them as they leave. We see the thieves celebrating their victory while their boss discusses their plans to return to their homeland. Haru suddenly appears, and he instantly freezes them with his barriers. One of the men tries to talk back, but Haru instantly blows him away. The boss ends up confessing everything, revealing that they are actually soldiers from the neighboring empire. Their goal was to cause chaos in the kingdom, and they even revealed they had someone helping them on the inside. Haru wonders if there is someone after his father's life, but the men don't know anything else. The men ask to be spared, but Haru tells them they messed up by attacking his father, so Flay ends up burning the entire base, and he ends up sending an anonymous letter to his father about what he learned. His father is surprised to learn that the Empire is involved, and Charlotte wonders who took out the bad guys, and he can tell that it must have been Flay stealing. Charlotte suddenly gets up and explains there is somewhere she needs to go. As she leaves the office she thinks about what she saw the previous night. She asks Flake if there are 2 Harus, but Flay is confused about what she is talking about. She reveals she saw them leaving, but she knows Haru shouldn't have enough mana to fly, so she checked in his room and she ended up finding his claws sleeping in his bed. She notes that it didn't have his usual scary aura, so she wonders what it all means. Flay is impressed to hear that Charlotte can sense her brother's strength, and she explains just how powerful he really is, but she tells her not to think too much about it. Flay ends up reporting her encounter to Haru, and he can't believe she already found out about his calling. He decides to set up extra surveillance on her so he can keep tabs on what she is up to over the Next few days we see Charlotte following him around no matter where he goes. Charlotte watches him even when he's in the bath, and when he tries to confront her she just runs away. After a week we learn that his mother and Charlotte are going on a trip to the annual festival. Haru tells them they should take Flay along. But his mother mentions that Flay hasn't been around, and Haru remembers how he told Flay to intimidate the monsters in the forest so they don't attack any towns. Later on Haru's alarm goes off and he realizes it's the surveillance he put on Charlotte. We see that their carriage was attacked by Imperial soldiers and Charlotte is carried away by her mother Natalia. The men chase after them casting their magic, but Natalia manages to block it, but she gets hit in the leg. Charlotte suddenly hears a voice and she directs her mother to run. Natalia wonders who's giving the directions, but they end up at a cliff. Charlotte tells her to jump and they manage to make it down by using magic. They end up finding a cave, but Natalia thinks it's too bright to be able to hide. Natalia decides to go out to find the person who is giving them directions, saying they must be a hero of justice. She tells Charlotte to stay quiet, and she quickly heads off. As she leaves the cave the entrance is hidden by some illusion magic, but at that moment the soldiers catch up to her. Natalia thinks she can't let herself get captured, so she prepares to take her own life. However, her blade suddenly shatters as Haru arrives just in time. He gets pissed off at the situation and he instantly blows all of the soldiers away. He calls out for Charlotte, telling her to take care of her mother, but she is terrified feeling his aura. She realizes it must be her brother, so she forces herself to see him. Haru is surprised to hear her calling his name and she asks if he is a hero of justice. He is confused by the question, but he decides to play along. Charlotte gets excited thinking he uses his powers to defeat bad guys, and Haru just agrees. She apologizes for not realizing his true identity, but Haru tells her she needs to keep it a secret. At night Haru's father receives a report about what happened and he wonders about the mysterious person that has been helping them. He asks Haru if he has any ideas, but he just says that the person should stay on their side as long as they behave. Charlotte and Natalia return and Charlotte instantly hugs Haru. She tells him how much she missed him and their mother wonders when they became so close. Charlotte refuses to explain, but she just says that she loves him now. Haru is happy about this, but Flay seems to get jealous of their new relationship. After that Charlotte would barge into his room every day asking to play, and he now has trouble dealing with her because she likes him too much. She wonders what he is doing and he tells her he is keeping watch with his surveillance magic. She is impressed he can use ancient magic, calling him amazing, and Haru says it's hard to learn since it's a lost magic, but Charlotte mentions that she has seen records about it and she ends up taking him to their castle archive. Haru is surprised to learn they had such a huge library and Charlotte helps him grab some of the books. Haru learns that his barrier magic is considered ancient magic and he is surprised Charlotte has been reading these books. He thinks they would be too difficult for her, but she says that their father would normally read it to her. She tells him to do the same sitting on his lap, and Haru does his part as her big brother. They read that there are some gods that can travel between worlds and Haru thinks it sounds like a story from an anime and Charlotte wonders what he is talking about. He thinks she wouldn't understand, but she insists on trying her best to listen. He explains it as drawings that can move and he gets excited talking about it and she wishes she could also experience it, so Haru decides to find a way for them to watch anime. After 2 weeks Haru manages to get access to the internet from Japan and he finds that his old Netflix account still works. He creates a kid's account for Charlotte and he lets her choose what she wants to watch. She picks a show about a magical girl, and she is amazed that the drawings can really move. She finds it amazing, but she isn't able to understand Japanese. Haru thinks it would be hard for her to learn a language but thinks she's a genius. He's glad she's having fun, but he thinks he needs to be a good example for her, so he tells her she can only watch for 3 hours a day. Charlotte is devastated, wondering why he would do this to her, but he claims it's for her own good. They have dinner together and Charlotte seems to be nodding off. Their father wonders what Charlotte has been doing in his room and Charlotte says they've been busy researching ancient magic, and their mother is happy to hear they're working Together after dinner, Charlotte follows him around, but he tells her she can't watch any more anime for the day, so she should just take a bath and go to sleep. We see Haru taking a bath and Charlotte ends up joining him. She thinks she should just go to sleep since she can't watch anime, and Haru thinks she is starting to sound like an otaku. She notices the crest on his chest and she calls it his emblem, saying it's his proof he's an ally of justice. He thinks she has been watching too much anime, but he tells her to keep it a secret, saying that allies of justice must hide their identity. They say good night and Haru goes to bed, but Charlotte ends up sleeping with him and we see their mother watching them, happy that they are getting along so well, but Haru just wants his own space. The next day their father leaves to subdue some thieves and Charlotte worries for his safety. She gets depressed, but Haru tells her not to be worried, saying their father will be fine. Charlotte tells him he should use his powers to fight the bad guys, begging him to go, and Haru has no choice but to agree. She tells him he needs to transform just like in the anime, so Haru ends up putting on a disguise. Haru gets embarrassed, but Charlotte thinks he is so cool she wants to go with him, but he says it's too dangerous, making her depressed. However, he gives her a way to watch his heroic deeds and he quickly heads off. He looks around for the thieves, finding them in a cave, and he uses his barrier magic to seal them in. He arrives at their location and the thieves wonder who he is. He calls himself an ally of justice, but the man try to rush at him. He's able to easily beat them all up, but he makes sure to go easy since Charlotte is watching. At that moment his father arrives, wondering who he is. He makes up a random name and his father wonders if he's the mysterious person who has been helping them out. He wonders what his goal is and Haru just explains that he's carrying out justice. He gets embarrassed with himself, so he quickly runs away. He can't believe himself, but Charlotte tells him he was super cool, wanting to see him fight again, and Haru can't believe he has to keep doing it, but he ends up making a name for himself and he becomes known as the Black Knight. After some time Haru seems to have perfected his clone thanks to the books from the library. His clone is now able to speak, but it acts too much like him and it's just as lazy as him. Charlotte wakes up in his bed and she is confused seeing the two of them. They get called for a meeting and Haru thinks his clone can go in his place, but his calm refuses and Haru realizes it's useless. Their family goes out to greet their guests, and we meet the royal prince and Princess Elias and Marianne. Haru wonders if there is real siblings, but Lise is stuck up and super rude. Marianne tells him to behave, but Elias says she can't boss him around since he's going to be the next king, so they aren't on the same level. Haru can't believe he is so terrible, but Elias calls him out for staring at him. He knows Haru is only level 2, so he decides to teach him a lesson, challenging him to a fight. Haru thinks it's going to be a pain, but Elias thinks he is afraid, saying he will hold back. Haru checks his level, seeing he is level 9 with a maximum of 40, and he compares it with his father and the Princess. Elias charges at him, but he easily dodges him. Elias tells him not to run away, so Haru uses his barrier to protect himself. He lets the prince beat him up, but Elias tells him to fight back, so he instantly attacks him from behind. Elias gets back up, but horror just keeps knocking him down. Marianne doesn't believe he is only level 2, but Haru's father just calls it a mystery. Elias refuses to lose, attacking with a fireball, but Haru just absorbs it with his barrier. The prince keeps on attacking, but his spells have no effect. He wonders what's going on and Haru reveals that he absorbed all the fireballs, wondering if he should return them, and Lise falls to his knees. Haru lets him off the hook and he is just glad it's over. Marianne apologizes for her brother and she wonders if he is really level 2. Haru confirms that he is, but he quickly excuses himself as he heads back to his room. He wonders if this incident will cause his real parents to come looking for him. We see Charlotte as she helps Haru look for bad guys to take down. Flay returns and she also wants to help out, but Haru thinks she will end up causing trouble. He asks her about his other tasks for her, but she claims to have finished everything. Charlotte gets excited, wanting to see them team up, saying that every hero needs a partner. Seeing how excited they are, Haru has no choice but to go along with it. He warns Flay that since Charlotte is watching them, she isn't allowed to use excessive violence. We see the group of thieves as they prepare to check out their haul, but Haru makes his entrance, introducing himself as the Black Knight, and Flay follows. suit calling herself the Crimson Knight. The men are confused and Flay attacks with her flame, setting them on fire. Haru tries to remind her of his warning, but she doesn't listen and continues to throw fire, so he ends up stopping it with his barrier. Flay is confused by what's going on and she prepares to use her full power, but Haru suddenly smashed Max her, reminding her not to be so violent. She says she got carried away, but she tries to burn them again and he smacks her again, telling her to head back while he handles the rest. Haru becomes exhausted afterwards, but Charlotte says they were awesome. Flame wonders why our attack didn't work, thinking she'll need to use more power next time. Haru doesn't want to do it again, but seeing how happy it made his sister, he considers this. Meanwhile, we see Lies as he wonders how Haru defeated him when he's only level 2. We learn he was trying to assert dominance as the next king, but it didn't turn out the way he expected. His aide tells him to get ready for the banquet and he suggests Elias to invite Charlotte to join him on their tour of the fields. The next day Elias doesn't care about her, but his aide tells him it's for his own good. Charlotte visits Haru after the banquet, and we learn he sent his column to take his place. His clone reminds him that they are the same, so he found the experience just as miserable. His clone can't handle being his double and it jumps into bed. Charlotte worries for the clone, thinking it will have to go on the tour, but she notes she will also be going since Elias invited her. Looking at how tired his colon is, Haru decides to be the one to go. Later at night, Haru decides to check the route for their tour to make sure that it's safe for Charlotte. He finds a suspicious group that looks like they are summoning something, so he decides to go check it out. He rocks up to them wondering what's going on, but the men are shocked to see him. They prepare their spells against him, but he easily takes them all out. One of the men activates the magic circle, summoning a bunch of skeletons. Haru finds them creepy, but he easily takes them down with his sword. However, they get right back up, jumping onto him, but he easily blows them all away. They keep getting back up, but he notices a crystal on their chest. As the man orders them to attack, the skeletons suddenly turn around and they start attacking the men instead. The leader summons a huge golem, crushing the skeletons, and it even manages to break through Haru's barrier. He wonders how to deal with it, but he notices it also has a crystal on its chest, so he ends up attacking it, causing the golem to stop moving. The men wonder what's going on, but it also turns on them and Haru apologizes, saying he stabbed it with his barrier, which overrode its magic formula. Haru ends up capturing them all and he tries to ask the leader about their objective. The man refuses to talk, so Haru gets the skeletons to dig a hole and he threatens to bury all of them alive. The leader reveals he works for the queen consort, saying they were trying to summon monsters to assassinate Charlotte during the tour. Haru wonders why they would target her, and the man reveals that the queen is scared of her potential, knowing Charlotte will surpass her one day. He mentions that the queen was also designed the bandit attacks, but since they failed twice, the queen sent her personal summoner squad. Haru thinks it's the same as when he was abandoned and she's doing everything to protect her own position. Haru gets angry thinking about it, and the golem starts to go wild, grabbing onto the man, but Haru stops it just in time. He refuses to lose the people he loves and decides to go against the queen, even if she's his real mother. We see Flight keeping watch as the tour takes place. The ride is awkward, but Charlotte tries to cheer Elias up, telling him he shouldn't feel bad about losing to Haru because he never even stood a chance. Marianne joins in, saying it's not a big deal, but this only makes things worse. Haru tells them to chill, but Elias thinks he didn't even use magic during their fight. Haru explains he can buff himself to get stronger, but Elias and Marianne are shocked to hear this. Haru isn't aware it's a big deal and Elias wonders if he's a returned demon. Haru doesn't know what that means. Beans and Charlotte explains that when a demon marries a human, their descendants can have demonic traits. Marianne thinks it would explain his power, but she notes he doesn't have any horns and just looks like a normal boy. Charlotte vouches for the rest of his body, saying it's completely normal since she's bathed with him, but this just weirds them out, thinking he's a perv. Charlotte wonders if it's wrong, but they just try to explain that it's not common. They arrive at their destination and they admire a wheat field. Charlotte runs off with Marianne and Lies while Haru has a chat with his father. Haru poses a hypothetical question, wondering what he would do if the queen was after Charlotte's life. His father reveals he got a letter from the Black Knight when he was delivered the queen's mages, so he knows the threat is real. He knows she sees him as her enemy, but he can't retaliate since she's the queen. Haru wishes she would disappear, but his father tells him the capital would fall into turmoil without her. He explains that the king fell from power long ago and there are many nobles that try to take the throne, but the queen keeps them all in check with her power. 2 years before Haru was born, the king led an army against the demon king with the queen Jezilium on them, and she took out the demon king by herself. She became a hero and her marriage with the king was supported by everyone, but she's now trying to take the kingdom for herself. His father thinks there's nothing they can do unless someone more powerful could replace the queen. He thinks Charlotte will easily become stronger than her, but she's still too young, so he tells Haru to look out for her until she grows up. Flay volunteers to take out the queen, but Haru declines, saying it's a personal issue, so he wants to be the one to do it. He thinks the queen will make another attempt on Charlotte's life soon, so he decides it's time they had a reunion. His mother Giselle receives a report about the failed attempt on Charlotte's life. Learning that the Black Knight is protecting her, she throws her drink at them, calling them useless, and she thinks she will need to handle it herself, but at that moment Haru arrives instantly, taking out her men with his barriers. Giselle wonders how he made it into her castle, which should be protected by barriers, but Haru calls them weak, saying he just broke through them. Giselle prepares to deal with him and Haru is surprised she can use 3 spells in a row. He gets trapped in a sphere of water, starting to drown, but he uses a barrier to help him jump out. Giselle follows up with ice magic, which Haru is able to defend against, so she then blasts him with her fire magic. Haru drops to the ground and Giselle starts to gloat, saying he was no challenge, but Haru just gets back up, brushing off the attack, and Giselle wonders who he is. Haru starts to retaliate, attacking with a barrage, and Giselle struggles to defend herself. She thinks he is even stronger than the Demon King and she starts to run out of mana, but she charges at him with her sword and Haru fights using his own sword. Giselle gets on top of him thinking she is unrivaled with the sword, but Haru ends up disarming her. He prepares to punish her, creating a collar around her neck, and he tells her she will lose her head if she tries to take it off. She wonders what he wants and Haru tells her he has one demand, telling her to keep her hands off Charlotte and his family, warning her what will happen if she disobeys. 5 years later, things have remained peaceful and we see Charlotte playing out in the snow. Haru finds it too cold outside, so he just wants to go back to his room. He wonders if flight is cold in her outfit, and we see her shaking, but she claims to be fine. Haru can see through her lie, so he gives her a new outfit and tells her to speak up if she has a problem. Charlotte tells him about a special move that she thought of, saying she isn't strong enough to use it, so she asks him to try it out. She explains how to do it and he thinks it's ridiculous, but he can't say no to her. He prepares his magic, performing a chant that he finds embarrassing, and he ends up drilling a huge hole in the ground. Charlotte is impressed and Haru is glad he could make her happy, but their parents suddenly appear, wondering what's going on, so Haru quickly uses his magic to create the Black Knight, who flies away, and he blames the hole on him, saying the Black Knight was passing by and showed off his special attack.